Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Zirkzank. This is Zirkzank says. I should have thought more carefully about the sort of stuff that I wanted to cover in the video, but I decided to just like improvise it and just fucking wing the shit out of it because in more recent times I've been doing that a lot more and it's been getting better and better. So I prepared myself to get to a point where I could wing it in life by doing YouTube shit. The only thing is though now that because I can wing it in real life and I could always wing it on YouTube and I could wing in presentations in university and that sort of thing, now when I come to YouTube videos I think, shit, I could be doing better YouTube videos. And oftentimes I have really good ideas that I want to make into a video, but the lighting isn't right, or the time of day isn't right, or I'm just not at my computer, so I just can't do it then and there. So then I end up like writing notes on my phone, and then I write notes in my phone, send them to myself by email, and then copy and paste them into like a fat document. This fucking document is like, it's as big as my dick now, and just so you know, that's fucking huge. No, I can actually tell how many words this is now. This fucking document of just notes. That's 73,000 words. That's not too long. The only other times I've wrote anything longer than this, though, collectively, right, academically, I wrote my dissertation, which was about 8,000 words, and then creatively I wrote a 15,000 words, started getting into writing a novel, never really finished it. I hope I will finish it before I die, but I need to work out a schedule that allows me to do that. Peterson's saying something like, if you can do it for 30 days, as opposed to 30 minutes a day, rather than trying to wait for the inspiration, or rather than trying to wait for a day where you've got 8 hours to do it, and then like deluding yourself that you're going to just be able to write for 8 hours, because it's never going to happen and you're never going to do it, and you're not going to get a book. But if you can manage to write for like half an hour a day, then you'll eventually get something, and it's much easier to sort of just say, hey, look, I've got half an hour, and then just start writing. It's like, fuck, I didn't think it could be that easy. But then I get scared that like I'll open up the document and then I'm sat there for like 30 minutes just writing complete shit, and I don't like anything that's going on to the page, and it's just like, alright, I shouldn't be doing this, what a waste of time, that was bullshit, and getting dragged down by it. So then I go to Scott Adams' advice, which is like, his advice is to have a system that you can't, a system that is hard to fail, or that you just stick to the system and then you feel good because you stuck to your system. So for example, going to the gym. Now his system was psychologically and physically to go to the gym. And now when I say go to the gym, what part of that implies that there's any workout? See, that's the thing. If you just turn up to the gym and don't do any workout, you've hit your goal, because your goal was to turn up to the gym. So in this case, the idea of being able to hit your target every day, or to fulfill your system's requirements every single day, is to open up the document that has my book in it for 30 minutes a day and stare at the screen, because I can't fail that. Now, within those 30 minutes, if an idea happens to occur, or I just feel like writing because I'm so bored, sat there doing nothing, then that'll happen. But otherwise, you set the goal to be something that you can do, as opposed to something you can't do. Because it's such a weird fucking thing. It's like, you need to give yourself goals and objectives that you can actually do. Because you can't say that you can write for 30 minutes a day unless you like have been doing and know that you can do that. But you can almost guaranteed sit in front of a blank page for 30 minutes a day. So just make the goal to be open the document, because then you can open the document and look at it. So that's a real simple one. But going back to what I was saying before about writing notes, a lot of these I've wanted to make into YouTube videos, but then my mood or the time or the relevancy of them has changed a bit, so I never really get around to it. So it's just a collection of notes. Some of them I did make into videos where I'm just sat there reading the stuff, or I tried to read it, memorize roughly what it's about, and then talk about the ideas as if it's like fresh. That's very difficult to do, but it's better to do that because what you're saying has like a lot of structure to it, and you don't miss things out. If you write something and then reread it, you notice, it's not clicking the right way it did when I was writing it. So when you write it, you're thinking about A, B, and C, but then when you read it, you're thinking like A and B, and you don't really get the C, the clicking point, so then you just have to rewrite it, or hammer down on it, add some extra bits to it. You can mold it and sculpt it, which is something that I find frustrating a lot about a lot of my videos. When I go back and watch them, I want to like make little amendments and little tweaks here and there, and then I do the same thing in real life, and just across the board, that needs to be a bit different, or this needs to change. But then when it's about stuff that you've already made and published, it's just like, it's really exhausting to have that mental burden when you think like, oh, I should have said this in this situation, knowing that you'll never get that situation to be quite the same and occur, and knowing that even if it did, you probably wouldn't be able to say it differently anyway. That's frustrating, and that's something I'm really like clicking with at the moment and coming to terms with, that wanting to change stuff that you've said or done, knowing that you can't, how to deal with that kind of situation. Because I mean, everyone has that, but how do you deal with it? Because you can deal with it just by saying, fuck it, it's in the past, it doesn't matter. Or you can deal with it by saying, right, no, that was significant, and there's a lesson to be learned there, and I want to learn the lesson, and I want to improve from it. So then you sort of digging into it a bit more, which is pretty much worthwhile and important to do. You want to improve yourself at all times, at least I do, I think. And that's another thing that I think I don't know, whether I even care about improving myself, or whether I want to just say, fuck it, I'll be me and whatever happens, happens. Or whether I want to try and improve. Because it's like, there's a lot of good there's a very strong arguments to say that life has meaning and that it's worth doing things, and then there are equally strong arguments that say life is fucking pointless and not worth living. But in more recent times, as I've just been discovering more and more things in life, doing new things, like for example going to work a job, first job I've ever been to, or going out to clubs and meeting as many new people as I can. I don't want to talk about any extra experiences than, for example, alcohol, and there are other things that you can do for experiences that are in the realm of alcohol. But for example, if you were on YouTube and you said, I don't know, hypothetically, if somebody said that they tried drugs and stuff, that would be so stupid to do, because if a hypothetical person said, I've done drugs, then it incriminates them. So it would be dumb for anyone to ever say that. But let's just pretend that somebody had said that. That would be another experience, new thing to experience. And it just, as long as you do that sort of thing responsibly and not regularly, that's a big thing. Don't regularly do like excessive amounts of alcohol or any drug, but just having new experiences, but being vigilant while you're having them, is something that I've been trying to do, and I have been doing, and it's fine-tuning my sense of where I enjoy being and the kind of people I enjoy being around. It's giving me a more perspective to compare things to, because I've had obviously lived in lots of different places and known lots of different people. And in the past, my life has been mostly surrounded by male gamer friends. Now I've been going out and socializing in a very different city, a city where it's like there's no technology, people ride around on horse and carts. I mean, not everyone does that, but there are actually people who do that, which is pretty strange. You have to pay with money, cash money everywhere. Drinking here is cheap. I don't really know what I'm trying to get to. All I'm saying is that meeting new people and doing new experiences has actually helped me to figure out a lot of problems or to solve issues that I've had bugging me for a long time, and been like, is this? You know, it helps me answer questions that I've been trying to answer, despite the fact that I never thought that you could get that kind of answer out of just doing things more. And as far as knowing what I like, I definitely know that musically wise, I fucking hate like indie pop rock in general, and most kind of rock that isn't metal. That's starting to piss me off because I've been going to Spider's nightclub and hanging around people who listen to that. It's shit, but it's at least not as bad as listening to music that's on the radio or at most mainstream clubs. What I'm really looking for, though, is clubs that play like hardcore electronic music, like Perturbator and Carpenter Brew, that kind of stuff, or future funk. But there's never, as far as I can tell, there's never going to be a place that plays fucking future funk, this or synthwave, you know, the meme music of the internet, because it's too nerdy, it's not mainstream enough, you can't make money off it. But yeah, my biggest and only complaint about a life where I've been going out clubbing and drinking with people every weekend has been that not knowing the songs makes it hard for me to dance or to even care about wanting to dance. And that's probably the biggest thing I've learned for certain. The other thing I've learned for certain is that I didn't have anything else to say to that, actually. I don't know what I've learned for certain. I kind of wanted to just make a video and say that it's been very good for me personally, developmentally, to go out and do new experiences, because it's made me realize that I'm a lot cooler than I thought I was, even though I already thought I was cool. It's good to have the reassurance, you know. And I've been trying to help other people realize how cool they are as well. Not in any kind of like, what's the words? Any kind of like superficial kind of like, you're awesome and you don't know it, but more like, you know, look at this fact and look at this fact, and it's like, well, clearly, if you pay attention to these two facts, you'll realize things are decent and you've got a good trajectory. Things are going well, and that means that they have the potential to go even more weller, like exponentially better, which is good. I'm just trying to help people realize that, which is nice to do. But more than anything, I need to genuinely make the poetry videos that I've been saying that I would make. I'm really bad at getting into the mindset for that, because like right now, for example, it's one of the only good opportunities I've had to be able to making a Zirkzank Says video. It's also be an opportunity to make a poem or perform one of the poems that I've written. But instead I'm doing this because I felt like this was necessary to discuss the fact that I have been writing down ideas and thoughts, because as Jordan Peterson says, I refer to that a lot because that's kind of like one of the main things in my mind is, how can I get my life together and improve it? And a lot of it is based on the stuff that Peterson says. I do go to other sources as well before anyone asks and says to me like, hey, you can't just go to one source because that's too biased. Obviously, I analyze that logically the stuff that he says, analyze the stuff that other people say, and then come to my own conclusions. But in order to really like fully stretch those and take those apart, you need to discuss them, talk about them, and write them down. And I've not been doing that as much while I've been busy doing work. And so it's important to come back to that. The other thing that it is that I wanted to think about is the fact that with my series, as I talk about things in life, I want to talk about actual events and stories. I did something similar to that when I made my video, which was my life story, which was my life from one perspective up to this point. I missed out a lot of stuff and said a lot of stuff from the perspective or in the way that I thought was true at that moment wasn't necessarily true. And then like at some point earlier on in 2017, I was going through this weird, I don't know, I want to call it weird, it's fucking normal as hell to be in love with somebody. That's like possibly the greatest feeling of being ever, as far as I'm concerned. Being in love is like, that gives your life meaning, I guess. Like having a relationship, having children, those are like, you know, the most fundamentally important things. And so falling in love earlier on this year, and then that crumbling apart, and then talking about that on YouTube whilst it was happening, kind of just made things worse. And that made me think like, I just should not talk about any of my real life experiences while they're happening. But at the same time, I want to document them in a way that it's entertaining and something that I can look back to. So now that I'm like interacting with people with the workplace and outside of the workplace, I don't want to be talking about people on my YouTube videos, because it's an exposure that they've not asked for and they probably don't want, and I'm not sure how to do it. So it's like, should I write about that stuff even for my own like understanding, or should I talk about people using like fictional names, like Bob, Harry, Charles, or whatever, fictional names for all the characters? But it's like, no, because then easily anyone who watches this who knows me will figure out the people I'm talking about by their fake names, and that would just be a disaster as well. So I really want to avoid doing anything like that, and trying to steer this series back to being where I'm trying to understand things but not talk shit about people. Basically, don't want to talk shit about people. And arguably don't want to say good things about people either, because that can be just as bad. No one wants you to be talking about them in a good light either, because it's still exposure. And I've got a lot of good things to say about a lot of the good people that I've met, but I wouldn't want to just go into that. Except in one scenario where a guy who I work with asked me to make a poem about him. I'm thinking like, yeah, I can do that. And that's different, so I'm going to do that, and that'll be fun. But yeah, what I'm trying to get to in the previous sentence, I'm trying to work out how to phrase what I'm saying is, I don't know how to discuss ideas that are still manifesting existence. Like, for example, when I was talking about a relationship I had when I was 16 to 18, somewhere around that age, it's like, that was 5 years ago. So because it was 5 years ago, I could talk about that, and I still don't understand every aspect of that, or any aspect of anything really. But what I'm saying is, it's not a big deal to talk about something that happened 5 years ago, because it's like no one really cares. But you can still extract the story out of it and make the analytical points that you need to make. But you can't do it about stuff that's happening in the present because it's just weird. So I'm trying to figure out the best approach to philosophical ideas. Philosophical is a strong word. I'll take that back, like almost immediately. My brain's running dry. This is usually like the bit in videos where anyone who's good at making videos would be like, they'd pause it, have a think for a while, restructure what they're trying to say, and then come back to it and then jump cut. But I don't like to fucking jump cut. To me, jump cutting is kind of like lying, and as I've mentioned before, it ruins the flow, but above anything, it just feels wrong. And lying is something that feels wrong immediately after you do it. And that's something that I think from all of the things that Jordan Peterson says, is like, instead of trying to tell the truth straight away, try and just not lie. That's something I've always just done anyway, because I just hate the feeling of lying. But that was partly going back to what I was saying before, is why it ends up ruining my position, because I end up being too truthful, too open, and too honest about things, to a point where it really does just devolve into a half-baked opinion on something. Like, for example, because this was like earlier on in the year, I can talk about this better, which was, like I was saying, earlier on in this year, that like few months of romance or whatever that was, as I was talking about that on YouTube without having any thorough understanding of it, it was just, I don't want to say embarrassing, because I don't really feel embarrassed by things, but it was just wrong. And you know, it's impossible to be 100% correct about things you don't know about, but talking about stuff, trying to figure it out, and only having an hour's worth of perspective on the internet about it is probably a bad idea. And it's why people write scripts and don't just go online and start trying to make videos where they're just talking nonsense. It's like, you can be entertaining about things, but you can't write a fucking it's like a report or thesis or essay. That's the word. You can't write an essay in real time, which is what I try to do every time I turn the camera on, like trying to make a real time essay where it tries to find some kind of profound thing to say and then say it. The only thing that I think that I said that was profound before, that I've added any, that stuttering was fun. The only profound thing I think that I've figured out at any point recently is that, well, two things really. Just taking every opportunity you can get to do anything is fucking worthwhile. You won't regret it, and even if you do, you can regret it comfortably, as opposed to regret it with suspicion. So like, if you've got the option to go out or stay in, you know what staying in is like, and then the entire time you stay in, you don't think, hey, well, I'm glad I stayed in. You're just thinking like, I should have gone out, or I wonder what's happening, or I wonder what would have happened to me if I'd have gone out. Whereas if you go out and you have a shit time, you at least think, well, you know, I had a shit time, but at least I know what happened, as opposed to if I stayed at home and I wouldn't. You could then throw in some cheeky bullshit about how staying at home could have had its own opportunities there, and something you couldn't possibly have imagined might have happened there. But there's always much more chance that doing the thing that has more opportunities attached to it is better. So bear that in mind. If opportunities arise, take them. I've always known that, but I've never been given opportunities. Now I'm getting the opportunities, and instead of saying no, like I would have done in the past, I say yes, You get more opportunities, to just have more experiences. It's great. That applies to every aspect of life, right from work, school, everything. Yeah. Oh yeah. The other thing that I was remembering was that of like how profound things are. That the it's not, I'll try and phrase this correctly, but with Jordan Peterson's talking about being meaningfully engaged and figuring out when you feel meaningfully engaged in life and then trying to do that more. I always thought that just seemed hollow because I never really knew ever what I wanted to do or what made me feel meaningfully engaged, and it felt like absolutely everything I didn't help with that. Like literally nothing I could do ever made me feel like, this is what life is all about. This experience is that. But then through observation and introspection, it occurred to me and I realized it, but through seeing different social scenarios just across like all groups of people in the real world, I ended up realizing that the thing that makes there's a precursor. Basically, there's a precursor to finding meaningful engagement. So, for example, if you like writing and writing makes you feel meaningfully engaged, even if you do it, you won't feel as optimally meaningfully engaged as you could do if you don't have the precursor. And the precursor to that is love. And at that point, when I say that and when I thought that, I'm thinking like how fucking cancerously new-aged, hippie, over the top, generic kind of concept is that. But of course, if you're lonely and you don't care about anybody, nobody cares about you, you don't like anything, your entire life is just resentment and depression, then no matter what you do, it's always gonna feel fucking empty somewhere. You know what I mean? So I figured that out. It's like, perhaps that's the reason why I can't feel meaningfully engaged, is because my social life is just not fit. My social life is just unhealthy. So even doing things that I would otherwise enjoy, like playing games, for example, it's like, I can't enjoy playing video games. Why is that? Is it because video games suck? Is it because I don't like video games anymore? And I'm just really struggling to get through all of that. It's like, well, I think I want to write a book, but I can't be bothered. Maybe I just hate writing then. Maybe nothing makes me feel meaningfully engaged. Maybe life is just not worth living. And you think, well, there is a precursor to all of that stuff, even the stuff you think is fun. And as I was saying, you need to have in your life people you care about and people who care about you. You need that social support. I'm not necessarily saying that I have that, but I'm saying that having seen that is the kind of thing that people can have and people do have, it made me realize, oh yeah, that's the reason why they're able to deal with the existential suffering of existence, is because they have that going on in their life. So even if at the end of the day they think, from a logical perspective, if everyone's gonna die eventually, then life is meaningless, you don't care about that when you're having fun with your friends or when you're in love with somebody, because nothing matters, because you've got people around and they end up mattering. So then the idea of mattering doesn't matter. So yeah, social experience has given me that, and that's a good thing because I've not necessarily fixed the problem in myself, but I've at least identified it as being a problem, and that's why. Going back to what I was saying, like Jordan Peterson says, Jordan Peterson says, Jordan Peterson says, Jordan Peterson says. Hello and welcome to Zirkzank says that Jordan Peterson says something, just repeats his stuff and then applies it to my life. But whatever. Bear with me on it because I'm at least citing him as a credible source for or whatever. But something along the lines of this, he says, if a memory lasts over 18 months and still bothers you when you think about it, it's for a reason. And it's because you haven't finished processing it emotionally. And you should try and do so because, it's something that your brain is telling you needs to be processed. Now, that if you don't think that what you thought about, you don't think that stuff matters, the fuck, my brain just fucking died on me a second there. Yeah, the brain is not made for, it's not evolved to just keep accurate records of history because that's not useful. But in actuality, the brain is a tool, a survival tool, and that memory, from a survival perspective, is there in order to help you learn from the past, to avoid making mistakes in the future, or to stay alive, basically. It's a survival thing. And surviving socially, surviving physically, surviving economically, whatever you want to call it, all different types of survival, your memory just records the stuff that doesn't work and rewards you and allows you to remember positively the things that do work. So then you just get better and better at it, used to those things, and then improve. A lot of it just happens subconsciously, and a thing happens, and you learn from it, and you don't think about it ever again because it's kind of just become part of you. But then there are some things that are just so big and difficult to process that you don't even think about them. You don't process them in real time. You don't even process them at all. So they're just there as just fucking ambiguous blobs of nastiness that you don't think about, and they never get solved, and you never learn anything from them, and you never develop as a person because of them. And so for me, that was like this whole thing that developed into a complex of mine. I guess a complex. I don't know what the word fucking complex means, so I don't want to even throw it out there. It became a psychological barrier, I guess, where I had my heart broken so badly between the age of whatever it was, 16 to 18 or 15 to 17, I can't even remember. Whenever I had that first relationship I ever had, that just ruined me psychologically, and I never analyzed it properly. I always just thought of it as like, well, she screwed me over and made my life miserable, and that's just the way the world works, and I tried to forget about it, but it's like there's a lot more to it than that, which I should have analyzed, how it impacted me, why it impacted me, and what aspects of it I can learn from at this point even. So one thing I figured out, which I mentioned earlier, which was that having love in your life, as in not just family love or friendships, as in like a strong romantic connection, that feeling of having that is kind of fulfilling, and it's very difficult to describe or explain, but it just makes you feel whole. I don't want to use any of this bullshit fucking language, so I'm trying to avoid that. But essentially what I'm getting at is that it puts you to a place that's so high that when you come down from that, nothing ever compares. And you think it will. Like, for example, I thought, hey, well, if I get over the fact that happened, 5 years later, should get back to being myself and it'll be fine. And you realize, no, once you have love and then don't, it's kind of like a permanent thing. You can never really go back to being, you can never go back to experiencing life without it. It's genuinely a big, important thing. I realize that's like the dumbest sentence ever. It's a big, important thing. There's nothing profound about that, but it's just, I'm glad that I've been able to at least analyze the fact that I will not regress, or cannot possibly regress, to going back to a stage in life where I'm happy or where I feel good without that. And realizing that and having that actually click for me properly was pretty significant, because it made me realize that I'm not just that there's like a solution to the problem, or that it's not like as if I'm failing to succeed in anything. It's just that that's the way things are. That was the most like poorly worded sentence ever. This is what I was talking about earlier, how it's better to write things down and then just read from the script, because then you can actually work things out properly and talk about them in a more sensible way. But yeah, put it back to being like comparing it to, going high and then going back to your regular state, whatever that happens to be, or however you happen to reach that state. It's like there is no normal state to go back to after you've experienced that, being that elevated in life. You just never go back to it. Like the come down kind of thing, just you don't recover from that come down. And that's kind of what I've been waiting for most of my life. It's like I've just been waiting to get back to being happy. Like, so before I'd ever been in love in my life, the first 15 years of my life were happy, and then they were even happier, possibly like the happiest you could possibly get when you have romance. And then afterwards they weren't, and I thought, well, eventually, things will get good again and I'll be happy again. But it only occurred to me like really recently why things haven't gotten back to that state. It's because they don't get back to that state until you have love again, which is really weird as a concept to me, because surely you think surely it should be possible without it, and maybe it is, maybe I'm wrong, but actually I don't think that's true. After all the people I've spoken to and interacted with and seen, it just clicked with me. It's like, oh yeah, I this makes sense. It does make sense. So going back to what I was saying before about how I've been inhibited by that, I've been in a situation where I've not had any since my first and only relationship, like, properly, when I was like, that was like 5 years ago. And then earlier on this year, I almost had something there. It's like my life has been very much missing out on that. And I see all my brother's friends, all these young people, and then people at work, hearing them tell their stories about their own lives and what's going on there, and then seeing all of that, it's like, oh yeah, these people don't have the existential worries and conversations that I'm used to having with all my friends. And it's like, well, yeah, because they're happy, because they have that. And then my friends, my close friends who I lived with, they've all basically most of my friends who I can think off the top of my head, all my closest friends, have got some kind of romance or love in their life. Basically, all of them have girlfriends or boyfriends, and they don't interact with me the way they used to, talking about the kind of things like I said, how much life sucks or whatever. No one cares about that anymore because their lives are being fulfilled by that. And fulfilled to me is the right word because it has like the double meaning of you have love and it goes inside of you and then it expands inside of you, and then when it's taken away, it doesn't just deflate. It's like it just gets ripped out and it leaves a void, and so you permanently have this void inside of you that needs to be filled. So then when you do get that, it fulfills that void. And I've basically just witnessed that and discovered that around people, and it's like, yeah, that should be obvious because that's literally what 99% of songs in music are about. It's what like 99% of films and books and literature is all about. It's like 90% of what people talk about. But hey, I think things click with me a little bit slower, so it took me a while to realize all of that. Now, having said all of that, and having lost my train of thought, what am I going to do about that? Basically nothing, but I already feel better, at least by just knowing that that's what's happened. The other thing being based around all my complexes that I realized why I developed complexes from my previous relationships, or relationship, I should say, which I don't know how best to explain in a way that makes sense on a YouTube video. So that's something that I'm gonna like try and write down to actually understand properly. But it's something along the gist of that it messed me up, and I don't want to blame myself being messed up on something that messed me up, that as if it was out of my control, because now it's kind of not. But I never analyzed things, and I never tried to fix things because I never saw the problem the way that it should have been seen, which was that having gone through that experience of losing love at whatever age I did, and then not processing it properly, sort of just waiting for the bad feeling to go away without thinking about why it did, and then without trying ever to interact more and find love again. Basically, it just solidified all of the negative aspects of that, and then never tried to recover it, because it's like I came out of a relationship and then didn't try to find anything new for such a long time that by the time I did, like many years later, like three years later than that, I was on Tinder, for example, trying to talk to girls on there, and then just couldn't do it, and just could not make it a significant connection with anybody at all, and then wondering why that was, and then like racking my brain, not being able to figure out what I'm doing wrong or why things are like that, and that was bothering me. But then I realized why. It was because I'd kind of just solidified a bunch of complexes because I'd waited so long without dealing with any of them. But then, oh yeah, and the other thing was that I was never gonna. The thing that made it worse was that after I'd broken up with that scenario in life, coming forward and then trying to talk to girls became harder because, like I said, I'd solidified a bunch of complexes, and additionally to that, my entire past 5 years where I've been at Confetti in Nottingham, there have been no girls whatsoever. So, first of all, like, my last meaningful, significant relationship with a girl ended pretty poorly, and then after that, it was like 5 years of no interaction with girls whatsoever, or no significant interactions with girls whatsoever. So it kind of just left me in kind of like on like pause. Basically, it just kept me in limbo on that same strand of whatever you'd call it. So I'm left with the same problem, but 5 years later, because it's just not been looked at all. I'm thinking like, why isn't the problem going away? It's like, oh yeah, because I have to think about it and look at what's going on. So that's about as far as I've got with that. But at least I'm uncovering why things have been not so happy for me. It's because I'm missing love, and the reasons why I've been not so able to find it on places like Tinder, just stemming from the fact that I developed a lot of psychological flaws in the way that I interact with people in general, but specifically with girls, because I didn't get any more interaction beyond what I had with like one girl, and then 5 years pass, and all of a sudden I'm back in a scenario where my colleagues and peers, females as well, and it's pretty overwhelming. But I think as I'm adjusting to that like so well, but not really as well as I would like, because it's still notable to me. I would like it to get to a point where I don't notice it, if that makes sense. But I don't even know if that's a good thing or not. Basically, there's this fucking green text that I've seen on 4chan, where all the green text come from. It's posted into the board R9K, and it goes something along the lines of, right, where I'll explain this better. I'm trying to explain the story in as best of a way as I possibly can. This one makes sense. So essentially, R9K is mostly full of lonely males of the age teenage to early 30s, who are all overweight, ugly, or just have severe social anxiety. They're usually very bitter, and they're all single, and 99% of them are kissless virgins, which means they've never even been with a girl or a guy. And there are girls on there, but they're also equally fucked up. I don't know of another way to say it. But essentially, I mean, I was part of that community. I'll talk about my recovery at some other point, if I have recovered, which I think I'm taking steps towards it. But essentially, what it comes down to is the fact that they've like internalized so many of their problems that the funny green text is like, here it is. The guy posts a picture of Pepe the Frog, which is like, it's a frog. This isn't Pepe the Frog. This is just a frog chilling. But the frog is just like, he's got his sunglasses on. In fact, I can put some sunglasses on as well. Make this fucking into some real shit. The idea is that the poster comes into the thread, OP, as he's called on these places, original poster. He says, "Hey guys, today I spoke to a girl and didn't fall in love with her. I'll see you later." And then he's just got the smug, cool glasses face thing on. And it's funny because it's like, it's so true when you have that many psychological barriers up, where it's like impossible for you to talk to women because you're so influenced by their judgmental side of them. You can't just view them as beings. They're just constantly judgmental. It's like something Peterson was saying, where women are like Medusa, like a head covered in snakes that petrifies you and turns you to stone, so that you just can't say anything at all, because you're just frozen. And that's literally what it is like talking to girls when you're in that state of mind. And I'm sure it's the same both ways, like women who are afraid of talking to guys, but I think it's for different reasons. I don't know. Maybe it's not. But the point being is that I guess it's the same as if you met somebody who you looked up to. You want to impress them, which puts pressure on you. Like, you meet the CEO of your favorite company, or the singer of your, or somebody who's in a band that you really look up to, or content creator, just someone you really idolize. You want to make a really good impression on them, and so everything you do, you're overthinking, you're overanalyzing, you're judging yourself on, and you're aware of them judging you, and you just it sends such a panicked state of shock to your brain that you just can't think of what to say, and you can't do anything about it. You can't have an interaction, you can't be yourself, you can't say what you want to say, and you can't even think what you normally think, which you'd think would be the easiest thing ever because it's your own fucking brain. But this person, by their presence, this person, because you're not used to having to deal with this pressure, and you know that if you say anything wrong, they won't like you anymore, whether it's a CEO or a girl or a guy that you like. You don't want to say anything wrong because you don't want to ruin the situation. But then because you panicked, you do say stuff wrong. You don't even say anything at all. That's the basic problem a lot of people have. So the 4chan guy, when he says, I put the glasses back in the fucking thing, and I want to put them back on again. It's like the most profound but meme thing ever. It's like, you've made it when you can talk to a girl without falling in love with her. And equally saying, like, the reverse of that. My audience is 99% male, so for the 1% female audience here, if you talk to a guy who you care about the judgment of, that you can interact with somebody without falling in love with them, of the opposite sex, who you find attractive, it's like, you've made it, basically. That's what it comes down to. And not just viewing every person as somebody who you have to try and impress. Every person of the opposite sex, or the sex that you are attracted to. 2017, after all. Let's be super progressive about this. You can talk to somebody without feeling that kind of like anxiety. I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah, don't feel the anxiety, or you feel it but you can overcome it, which is even better. And that you can interact with somebody and you can like them and not fall in love with them. And I think that being away from girls for that long, for me personally, kind of robbed me of the opportunity to make female friends who are genuine friends, and not just falling in love with every girl that you interact with purely on the sake of them being a girl. You actually... That's kind of what was holding me back on Tinder, was because I wasn't falling in love with girls, but it's like I was paralyzed by the fact that there was an opportunity for it to happen there, and if you said anything wrong, it wouldn't happen. So basically, you end up paralyzing yourself by worrying about stuff like that. And if you don't get the opportunities to just be friends with people that just be friends, for me, not getting opportunities to be friends with females was ruining my ability to talk to girls. So it's like a fucking vicious cycle. And that was never going to get broken by online dating apps, because the point of an online dating app is to, well, there are two reasons. It's for sex or it's for a relationship, like meaningless sex or a relationship. You don't go on there to make friends with people. You go on there to fuck people, essentially. So I was never gonna like go well and then just find friends on that. And I was never gonna find find friends who are mutual friends with my male friends, because all of them were basically in the same situation as me. Either that or they were gay. So they care so little about talking to women and never had any experience talking to women, so they just would not have the female friends to be like, oh hey, welcome to our friendship circle, and then it's just like normal going on like that. But like I say, in Hull here, I had plenty of opportunities to make female friends, and very rapidly, fucking rapid as fuck boy, rapidly adapt to that and be able to view women as people. Because, like I said, for the majority of my life, the past 5 years of it, I've been only surrounded by male peers. All of my friends have been male friends, and my only experiences of women have been like romantic, which, you know, disastrous romantic, or sexual, as in like pornography. So it just created very unhealthy perceptions, and as I've trained my neuroplasticity, that's the ability to change and adapt your brain very rapidly and quickly. Like, I have that because I'm fucking sick as fuck, but sick in a good way, like fucking radical, man. I was able to fucking adjust that and fucking, you know, like fucking overpower, hardcore, overclock my brain. Overclock my brain! My voice is breaking down because of this. This water's fizzy water, but it's fucking stinging my throat. Yeah, I was able to fucking overpower and go just slam through that barrier and just be like, yeah, I can talk to girls as people now. And I'm pretty happy about that. Because once again, that was another aspect of the damage that I'd done to myself by not addressing problems that I should have addressed or should have been addressing over the past 5 years. So yeah, making YouTube videos and now forcing myself into loads of social opportunities, it's great. I can talk to people I don't know. I mean, I could always do that, but a lot of the time I didn't try to carry on conversations because I'd always sort of just wait for other people to ask me questions, then answer their question, and then stop talking to them. But now I'm getting a lot better at actually performing engaging conversation. I genuinely think that making YouTube videos has helped with that. And also coming to terms with the fact that you shouldn't be ashamed of things that you've done that you finished processing the shame of. So for example, the example I like to use for that is having bought like stupid sex toys from the internet. The time I did it, I was not in a great place, and so I was making stupid decisions. But I felt shame at the time, but then after processing the shame, I no longer feel the shame. So, as an example, when people bring that up to me in conversation, like my fucking brother who does, he tries to embarrass me in front of his friends, but I fucking just, fucking swerve that shit, because I'm not embarrassed or ashamed of that anymore, because I analyzed the situation and understood it and come to view it as like, yeah, that was a poor financial decision. But at the same time, how can you knock it till you've tried it? And why the fuck doesn't everyone do it? You know what I mean? Just turn it into a joke. It's like, hey, do you have a pocket pussy? I'm like, yeah, who doesn't? You're missing out if you don't have one, man. It's just like, yeah, it's you make yourself into a joke and allow people to realize that everybody does stupid things, and hey, it's character building, right? You get something, you do something like that. You get some Japanese pocket pussy from the internet, and then you can become better as a person because you end up learning that it was retarded. Like I said, you got to make a few mistakes before you can realize what you should and shouldn't do. So I would say I made that mistake, but then I learned from it. The first mistake that I made was buying a pocket pussy that was too small. So for example, I'll talk about this because I just don't get embarrassed, and I don't care about this like at all. I can just talk about anything. It's fucking great. You should try it if you're not too much of a pussy, a pocket pussy, to do it. So yeah, I got it, right? And you know how Japanese there's a common stereotype about the Asian male penis being a bit on the small side. Well, surprise, surprise, their sex toys for men, the male masturbators for lonely men, are also designed with the small penis in mind. So you get one of those, put that on a fucking huge dick like mine, and that thing just fucking breaks. So that was one mistake. I broke that straight away because, powerful Western white man, compared to the fucking puny little Asian dick, it's not gonna last, and it didn't. So then I get another one, thinking, right, see what the size is, right? Contact the website owner, see if it's give me the measurements. I need to make sure it'll fit. It's on the small side, but it'll do. Get that, It's all right. But then after a while of doing that, you think, hey, hang on a second, I need to fucking kill myself. Because you realize what you're doing is actually not a great thing to be doing. But realizing that, you just get to laugh at yourself and say, well, this is stupid. And then you just stop and you think, well, that was that. I've come to terms with it. I've realized this isn't the solution to my problem. Being in a relationship as I was, I realized I developed a complex. Which I keep using the word complex. I'm gonna fucking look this shit up on Google right now just to make sure that that it's correct. Define complex. This is gonna tell me complicated. Now psychology, psychoanalysis. A related group of repressed or partly repressed emotionally significant ideas which cause psychic conflict leading to abnormal mental states or behavior. So yeah, it was a complex. Complex is the correct word. I developed a complex where I really wanted to ejaculate inside of a vagina by being in a relationship. It's so fucking bizarre and out of this world that as a male human, I would want to put my male human penis inside of a female human vagina and then ejaculate. Can you even comprehend the fact that I would want to do that? That's so weird, isn't it? No, but it's natural, right? You'd want to do that, especially when you're in a relationship with somebody for 2 years or so, something like that. But then not being able to do it through complex reasoning, which stems to the fact that she didn't want to get pregnant, which is understandable. I wouldn't want her to have been pregnant, so then that just doesn't happen. But essentially, it built up a very strong desire within me to do that, and that was my outlet for that. It's like in the state of depression where I'm thinking like, if I can't come in her pussy, I'm just thinking, I'm gonna buy one from the fucking China. Something along those lines, like, well, fuck this bitch. I can still get pussy if I want. I'll just get it from the people with the thin eyes. Not to be racist, I'm just trying to make it into a joke. Don't get on my back about saying that Asian people have thin eyes, because What the fuck? It's true. They don't sweat. They don't sweat fat, so they have like clean sweat. It's just a genetic thing. Get over it. Some people have more hair on them than others. Get over it. But yeah, like I said, I built up a complex where sex happened, but there's just never the ejaculation part, and that sort of just built up on me. And my solution, instead of finding someone else, I just thought, well, I'm never going to find love again, but I don't know. Being depressed, you make bad decisions. Everyone knows that when you're not in the correct mental state or a decent mental place. You come to poor conclusions. That was my conclusion at the time. But like I said, analyzing and breaking down why I have these complexes and all that of what went wrong, it's slowly helping me to discover what barriers I have, why I have them, where they came from, and not even really like what to do about fixing them, but just the fact that they exist is helping me get rid of them. For me, that's usually enough. As long as I can just point at something and then say, well, that's there and that makes sense, like, I automatically just figure the rest out without even having to think about it. So I'm not even having to think about a solution to any of this. And it feels fucking great. Now, the best thing about doing anything, once again, YouTube, talking about this stuff, putting it out on a public platform, anyone can look at this and say, ha ha, or laugh at me in any kind of mocking way. But I say, like, you can have the last laugh, but I get to have the first laugh, because I've already laughed at this. You can laugh after me, but it doesn't change things. But yeah, it's good to just share things and put yourself out there in a way that would be embarrassing if you couldn't comprehend it or process it. So usually embarrassing things for people are the things that they get overwhelmed by. Like, I see when other people get embarrassed by things, it's because they don't have an answer. They don't have an explanation for the situation, or they just feel shameful of something, and people are hammering down on them about it for amusement. I watch it a lot, and I really do think that nobody could possibly be negatively influenced by embarrassment if they were just able to process things better. That's kind of the way I see it. Or you couldn't be embarrassed by something that somebody said if you understood that that person also has many, many things about them that are embarrassing too. So that's kind of the way I see it. You say, someone says, hey, you smell. You're like, alright, well, you're ugly. It's like, you see what I mean? There's always something that you can twist. But being smelly and being unattractive are not things that people necessarily feel embarrassed about or troubled, or as far as I can tell, they're not issues in the same vein as embarrassment, because embarrassment to scenarios is usually about stories or things or decisions or events that people have done. People can feel embarrassed about stuff they've done, not sort of stuff that they are. So, like, you wouldn't feel embarrassed about, like, your skin color, would you? Maybe. That would take a real fucked up set of minds to make somebody feel embarrassed about their skin color, I think. Unless, I don't know. I'm talking about, like, stuff that's part of you and stuff that's what you do in the world. And that's kind of like the difference. You don't feel embarrassed about that stuff, or at least you shouldn't, I guess. I don't know where I'm going or what I'm trying to say with this at the moment. What I was trying to say was that if you have problems of stuff bothering you, look at why it's bothering you and what causes it, And if you can at the same time, talk about it or write about it if that's easier for you. But you have to analyze it through speech and thought. You can't just let it fester away in your brain, otherwise it'll just cause more problems and things just get worse and worse exponentially as they also get better and better exponentially. Yeah, and like I say, it's not easy to make YouTube videos at first. But now it is, for me, quite easy to just go on and talk about very personal, sensitive topics. I can do that to complete strangers because I've been doing it online. So it's improved my social life. Now that I've been given, like I was saying, opportunities to have the social life. Because before, when I was just sat in my room, even though I was talking on YouTube, making these videos, improving my ability to speak and think, I still didn't have the ability to go out and interact because my housemates, well, we went out a few times, but they weren't really into the going out, meeting new people kind of thing. Or at least, while we were at university, we kind of wanted to focus on doing our work more, I think. So, even though we didn't do our work, we just thought it was a waste of time and money to go out and drink alcohol. So we didn't do that much. But we did sit around listening to music and playing games, and we did get drunk quite a lot, but that was like within the household. So we didn't go out and do that. We'd always thought, and I'd always thought for most of my life actually, that this is kind of a weird thought. New topic, whoosh. For a lot of my life, I always thought, hey, I've made all the friends that I'm ever going to need to make. I'm just going to stick with these friends and never make any new friends. So then I dropped the ability to make new social interactions because I always thought, well, I don't need any other friends. The ones I have are good enough, thanks. But then as life goes around, you think, well, it's nice and it's amazing to have good long-term friendship connections, but there'll be times when you're detached from them and you need to form new bonds. And if you can't do that, that puts you in a bad position. So I'm rediscovering how to do that at the same time as overcoming a lot of other fucking problems as well. But I'm doing it really well. And I think that's definitely in part due to YouTube. It's also due to the fact that I'm fucking awesome. But it's also due to putting effort into it, which a lot of people, I guess, don't do. I don't know. I'm trying to give advice right now while at the same time give my own story and just say, hey, look, if I can do it, you can fucking do it. That's for sure. Because I think I started out as like a highly unsociable, exceptionally introverted kind of person who just played Pokemon and RuneScape and only ever cared about increasing my numbers on RuneScape. And now I think I've reached the point where I don't even play RuneScape anymore. So you can see how far I've come. Nah, I don't know. I don't know what I was saying. I lost my train of thought again. So I'm gonna fucking wear my glasses like this. The main thing that I was trying to say was probably something that I'll watch the video, get back to this point and think, fuck, that was real simple, why didn't I say that? Yeah, I think I'll end the video, but I'll be pissed off that I didn't get to cover what I was trying to get to just then. But yes, it's definitely a good idea to do stuff that you're not used to doing and not comfortable with. It's like, once again, a real overused and over-referred to metaphor, not metaphor, it is a metaphor, but it's fucking real as fuck. The Tao symbol of the Tao, the way, the yin and the yang, you know, the balance between chaos and order, walking on that fine line of mixing stuff you're used to with stuff you're not used to. Don't go all the way into fucking chaos. Just don't overwhelm yourself with new things. But at the same time, don't just get trapped in your only sticking to what you know and what you're used to. You need to find the fucking balance and then just stay on that point. And recently I've been doing that a lot. So I want to say that after not thinking that anything like that would be possible or that any of that mattered, and then now getting to a point where I've tried it and I'm thinking like, yeah, actually, it's fucking good when you do that. It's making my life better. I'm still tired and exhausted all the time from my job that I have to do right now, but as I'm thinking into the future and thinking into the present, I'm thinking like, I know what I'm doing now, for now, is worthwhile, it's good. It'll give me opportunities into the future. I'll take every opportunity I get, work-wise and social-wise, get some money, and then how I manage that will be good. It's like constantly uphill exponentially. When one thing goes right, you get two opportunities, and then you get more opportunities to go right. You get opportunities to go wrong, but you have exponentially more opportunities appearing for you, and as long as you do at least most of them right, things just get better and better. If you do most of them wrong, things get worse and worse. And when you're at the lowest point in your life, it's very easy for more wrong things to happen. But on the bright side of that, at least when things are as shit as they can possibly be, it's hard for them to get shitter. It's also hard for them to get better, but it's really hard for them to get shitter. They can always get worse, which sucks, but how much worse can they get, really? You gotta think. And mostly, how much better can they get? Although, having said that, I've always thought, when I'm in a shit position, as I have been a lot of times in life, I never think, you know what, maybe in a few weeks I'll feel fine. It's like, what does it matter? A few weeks don't matter. I feel like shit now, and I want the problem to stop now. So how do you go about that? And that's something else that I've come to terms with, which is the fact that you have less of that when you have a good-looking trajectory for where you're heading. When you hit like a bump in the road along the way, when you feel like a little bit shit, it doesn't matter as much when you know where you're going is good. So it's like, critically, the most important thing is to have a good trajectory. Because even when you start to feel like life is meaningless, if you've got a good enough trajectory, you forget about that pretty quickly and you get to progress on. That's one of the biggest and most important things I've learned. Like I say, I've learned a lot of big, important things recently. And surprise, surprise, it's because I've been doing new things. New things lead to new learning, which leads to just more improvements overall. And it especially is good when it like fucking meshes with things that you already know, and then you create links with like, oh yeah, I knew about this theoretically, but then after experiencing this, it's like, fucking hell, that clicks with this, I already knew this, now that clicks with this, and then you're creating like triangles and fucking all kinds of weird connections in your brain, and you get exponentially smarter. I love the word exponential. My favorite word is zephyr, as in like wind. And my other favorite word is temporal, as in like of time, or relating to time, time related, which is kind of what the Zipporal Entertainment fucking title comes from. The temporal zephyr, like the winds of time, just, you know, go with the flow of time. But it's also another thing, temporal zeal, which is like very strong enthusiasm and dedication to a cause, but it's within a specifiable amount of time that doesn't last very long. That was another thing creatively that I was trying to improve upon. But as I found, that wasn't as important as I thought it was. What is actually really important is having a good trajectory and having opportunities available to you. Being able to spot opportunities is another thing that you get better at. Especially if you're wearing fucking 6 shades like this, you can see like opportunities everywhere. It's like the glasses out of They Live. You know, you put the glasses on and you just see fucking words on propaganda on posters and shit. Or dead people. I can see dead people with these things on. There are tons of opportunities in dead people. Like you can fuck corpses and shit. I don't know. I'm genuinely running out of things to say here because I'm trying to stall for time until I can get back to saying what I was trying to say before. Can't remember what it was. Probably never will. And so I'm going to just end the video. It's been like fucking an hour and 20 minutes. I think maybe like 2 people are going to watch this. If you're one of the 2 that watched this, thanks for watching. And when I say only 2 people are going to watch this, I'm not saying that in a complaining way. I'm saying it like a way that is based on evidence of... The evidence was that somebody said to me something like, your video's like over an hour long, or your video's like 40 minutes long, I'm not going to watch it. And it made me think, yeah, of course, people aren't going to watch a video that's this long, especially when it's, you know, you'd have to really like what somebody was saying, how they were saying it, or something about them to be watching for 122 fucking 82 minutes, 122, an hour and 22, no, for 82 or 83 minutes straight, you'd have to have good reason to do it. And it made me think, yeah, well, if even people who like me wouldn't do it, then who would? That's a pretty crazy thought. So if you made it to the end of this video and you were engaged or thought that it was interesting, and I'm genuinely impressed, and I genuinely appreciate the fact that you watched this to the end, because it's a fucking huge amount of time. And as I've become more and more busy, I realize the value of time. It's ridiculous for me to expect anyone to put this much time aside for me, because when I'm looking at the videos that I watch, you know, like 3-hour-long episodes or 3-hour-long interviews with Jordan Peterson, or 2-hour-long lectures that he does. It's like, this is someone who has something that's worth saying and worth listening to. What I have to say, in comparison to him, is definitely not worth saying. For me personally, it's worth saying, and for some people who watch this, maybe it's worth it for you, but like in the majority, for most of it, I just find it really like it's an honor for somebody to give me this, to dedicate this much time to watching something that I've made, because yeah, it's like time is fucking valuable. This is the same amount of time as a feature-length movie takes to watch, and I can guarantee that most feature-length movies have more significance, you know, like especially an Adam Sandler movie. There's more like profound knowledge, wisdom, and value in that than watching this. So genuinely, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.